Hello and welcome. The Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court during 2008-2009 totally disapproved of the manner in which 9 sitting judges of the High Court figured in a snooping exercise. It has now come to light. Justice T.S. Thakur, who is a sitting judge of the Supreme Court now, severely indicted the Punjab government for tape recording conversations of private persons by Punjab's Vigilance Bureau, then headed by controversial IPS officer Sumet Singh Saini, who is the state DGP now. Here is an exclusive report by newsroom head Harpal Singh and the Day and Night News team. Before we share the contents of Justice T.S. Thakur's stinging and sensational letter with you, let us give you a heads up on the high-profile people whom this detailed 9-page letter concerns. The writer of this letter, Justice T.S. Thakur, is a sitting judge of the Supreme Court of India at New Delhi. Before his elevation to the Supreme Court on 17 November 2009, he was the Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court during 2008-2009 for 15 months. The man in the eye of the snooping storm is Sumet Singh Saini. The controversial Punjab cadre IPS officer from the 1982 batch is presently the DGP of Punjab Police. He was the head of Punjab Vigilance Bureau during 2008 when he undertook tapping of telephones of 2 private individuals, which led to recording of conversations about 9 sitting judges of the Punjab and Haryana High Court. Saini, on the directions of the Supreme Court, is facing a day-to-day criminal trial at a special CBI court at Tees Hazari in Delhi for abduction, disappearance and killing of 3 members of a Ludhiana business family in March 1994, allegedly due to a personal rivalry. H.S. Mattewal served as the Advocate General of Punjab during 2008-2009. He suffered a severe heart attack and hemorrhage in May 2010, which has left him disoriented. He, however, continues to be on the rolls of the SAD BJP government as a legal advisor in the rank of a cabinet minister. Justice Vijender Jain was the Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court when the phone tapping misdemeanor was undertaken by Sumet Singh Saini at the Punjab Vigilance Bureau. Justice Jain retired on 1st August 2009 and made way for Justice T.S. Thakur as the Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court. Justice Jain has just been appointed as the Chairman of the Haryana Human Rights Commission. The Vigilance Bureau reports mention 9 judges of the Punjab and Haryana High Court by name. These include Justice M.S. Gill, Justice H.S. Bhalla, Justice M.M.S. Bedi, Justice Ranjit Singh, Justice Suryakant, Justice Rajiv Bhalla, Justice M.M. Kumar and Justice K.S. Garewal. Some of them, like Justice Garewal, have retired, while the others have been elevated and promoted on other posts. Justice M.M. Kumar, for instance, is the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, and Justice H.S. Bhalla is a member of the Haryana Human Rights Commission. During 2008-2009, the Punjab Chief Secretary was Rameshender Singh. He was made the Chief Information Commissioner of Punjab immediately after he retired. Dr. B.C. Gupta is an IAS officer of the 1975 batch from the Punjab cadre who served as Punjab's Home Secretary during 2008-2009. In November 2009, he was made the Secretary, Department of Food and Public Distribution in the Union Government, from where he retired in May this year. NPS Olak served as the Director General of Punjab Police from March 2007 to February 2009 when he was picked up as the new Chief of the Elite National Security Guards, or the NSG. The 1972 batch IPS officer retired in August 2010. Justice K.G. Balakrishnan was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India from January 2007 to May 2010. He received a detailed communication from the then Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court, Justice Vijender Jain, recommending a transfer for Justice M.S. Gill. Since Justice Jain's tenure was coming to an end, Justice Balakrishnan decided to seek the views of his successor, Justice T.S. Thakur, before taking any action. Now, the contents of Justice T.S. Thakur's letter. Justice T.S. Thakur, in his letter of 11 January 2009 to the then Chief Justice of India, Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, has questioned the misdemeanor of the Punjab Vigilance Bureau to undertake tapping of telephones and snooping on conversations of two private persons about many people, including certain lawyers like Randeep Rai and 9 sitting judges of the Punjab and Haryana High Court at that time, including Justice M.M.S. Bedi, Justice Ranjit Singh, Justice Suryakant, Justice Rajiv Bhalla, Justice M.M. Kumar and Justice K.S. Garewal. Justice Thakur has made scathing observations about the entire process of tapping of telephones by Punjab Vigilance Bureau and called it suspect. Justice Thakur has decried the abuse of discretionary powers by senior civil servants of Punjab government who, he has written, did not apply their mind before granting permission to tap the telephone of two private persons under surveillance. Justice Thakur has also taken strong exception to then Punjab Vigilance Bureau IG Sumet Singh Saini's handing over of all the CD recordings and reports to then Punjab Advocate General H.S. Mattewal, who he has written had no locus standi in the administrative hierarchy of Punjab, nor was there any occasion for Sumet Singh Saini to seek his advice in the matter. Vigilance Bureau should have submitted the reports on surveillance to the next higher office in the chain of command and not to the Advocate General Punjab, Justice Thakur has written. Justice Thakur has further said that the Punjab and Haryana High Court had passed an order against Sumet Singh Saini directing a CBI investigation in a case of custodial killing in which Saini was an accused. And then Advocate General H.S. Mattewal had appeared in the Supreme Court on behalf of Punjab government, which had challenged the High Court's orders. Saini has since been acquitted in that case. Justice Thakur has made scathing observations about Sumet Singh Saini. He has written that the nature of organized crime or case involving security of the state were not available from the record. Justice Thakur has added that it is difficult to appreciate the immediate provocation which the Vigilance Bureau had for demanding the permission for tapping. Also, no follow-up action was taken based on surveillance on any of the two counts cited for permission, organized crime and security of the state. Interestingly, Sumet Singh Saini had, as IG of Punjab Vigilance Bureau, taken permission from then Principal Secretary Home, Punjab, Dr. B.C. Gupta, to tap the telephones of two private individuals. The phones of both these persons were placed under electronic surveillance on 17 April 2008 for over 3 months until the last week of July 2008. But the Vigilance Bureau did not submit any reports to the then Chief Secretary until end September, when the Chief Secretary prompted Saini. In his letter of January 2009, Justice Thakur has said that if the telephonic conversations were recorded by the Vigilance Bureau, reports based on the same ought to have been submitted in the ordinary course. Justice Thakur has further stated that the fact that the Vigilance Bureau had not submitted any report to the Chief Secretary till as late as 29 September 2008 regarding what had been done or discovered by the Bureau, and the fact that it was only when the Chief Secretary mentioned the matter to the Director Vigilance that a report was submitted to him, makes the entire process suspect. Justice Thakur has stated in his letter that he closely examined the issue of telephone tapping by scrutinizing the records and summoning the concerned officers after the then Chief Justice of India, Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, wrote to him on 5th September 2008 to seek his comments on the communication dated 14th June 2008, which his predecessor Justice Vijender Jain had sent him against Justice Mehtab Singh Gill. Until then, Justice Thakur has stated neither then Punjab Chief Secretary Ramesh Inder Singh nor the then Punjab Home Secretary B.C. Gupta nor the then Punjab DGP NPS Aulak had any inkling about the phone tapping exercise Sumeet Singh Saini had undertaken. In his letter to the then Chief Justice of India, Justice Thakur has exonerated Justice Mehtab Singh Gill of any wrongdoing and in fact has praised his work on the judicial side as well as in his capacity as the chairman of the Punjab State Legal Services Authority. Justice Thakur has stated that the CDs and transcripts do not have any conversation to which Justice Gill may be a party. The conversation is between third parties, the veracity and correctness whereof cannot be taken for granted without a complete investigation in the matter, Justice Thakur has added. Justice Thakur has also disagreed with his predecessor at the Punjab and Haryana High Court, Justice Vijender Jain, for giving weightage to material which he says is suspect. He has stated that I do not consider the material referred to by my predecessor in his communication to be free from suspicion, leave alone conclusive enough to be made a basis for the indictment of a sitting judge of the High Court. I would in conclusion say that there is no cause as at present for me to recommend any action against Justice Gill by way of transfer or otherwise. It's time for a short break now, but when we return, we will look at how the entire phone tapping episode unfolded. Stay with us. Welcome back. The tapping of telephones of two private persons by Punjab Vigilance Bureau IG Sumeet Singh Saini appears to have been done under an audacious conspiracy to discredit some judges and defeat the collegium system of selection and promotion of judges. Here is how the events unfolded beginning April 2008. 17th April 2008. The Punjab Vigilance Bureau, under the supervision of then IG Sumeet Singh Saini, placed the telephones of two private individuals, Ramlal and an unnamed person, under electronic surveillance. April 2008. Interestingly, the tapping of telephones by Saini coincided with the meeting of the Punjab and Haryana High Court Collegium to recommend names for elevation to the bench. As the process picked up momentum, differences emerged among members of the collegium over the recommendation of names following reports of extraneous considerations. Justice M.S. Gill and another member of the collegium are believed to have refused to go along with the then Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court, Justice Vijender Jain. 29th April, 10th May, 29th May, 3rd June, 5th June and 25th July 2008. Punjab Vigilance Bureau compiled 6 reports based on audio and video recordings of conversations of Ramlal and the unnamed person. In the final top secret report dated 25th July 2008, Saini stated that the telephone numbers of two persons were kept under electronic surveillance with effect from 17th April 2008 on due orders of Principal Secretary Home Punjab for purpose of detection of organized crime and for reasons of security of the state. Who this communication is addressed to is not known. Saini also states in this report that during this exercise, certain serious matters concerning the Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court and the subordinate judiciary had come to light. These included malpractices in specific cases, talks regarding appointment of judges, malpractices in the registry of the Honorable High Court to place certain cases before a particular bench, and malpractices in the subordinate judiciary. The Vigilance Bureau quoted 8 instances of judicial impropriety in the preliminary report submitted on 29th April 2008. it added 2 more instances in the brief supplementary report on 10th May 2008. Names of 9 judges of the Punjab and Haryana High Court figured in the 6 Vigilance Bureau reports based on talks between the 2 private persons. In the recorded conversations, there was no evidence of any of the judges being aware of what was being said about them. In the final report, Saini stated that monitoring has since been completed and discontinued. And Sumedh Singh Saini submitted these reports to the then Punjab Advocate General H.S. Mattewal. Saini, as the head of the Punjab Vigilance Bureau, reported to the Punjab Chief Secretary, in this case Rameshinder Singh. But he broke administrative protocol and sent these reports to Mattewal, who had no locus standi in the administrative hierarchy of Punjab. Unmindful of breach of protocol, H.S. Mattewal in turn handed over these reports to the then Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court, Justice Vijender Jain, who also overlooked protocol in accepting these reports from the Advocate General. 14th June 2008, Justice Vijender Jain forwarded these reports just before his retirement to the then Chief Justice of India, Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, with a recommendation to take punitive action against Justice M.S. Gill. 5th September 2008. Instead of accepting the recommendation of Justice Vijender Jain, Justice K.G. Balakrishnan decided to seek the views of his successor at the Punjab and Haryana High Court, Justice T.S. Thakur. 11th January 2009, Justice T.S. Thakur judiciously examined the entire issue as the new Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court and wrote a 9-page letter to the Chief Justice of India. 6 July 2009, Justice Balakrishnan subsequently told the Indian Express correspondent Manish Chibbar in New Delhi that he had received a letter from Justice Vijender Jain. But he was about to retire, had less than 2 weeks, I think. The committee decided that since he is retiring, we should wait for the new CJ. Then the present CJ sent a report that these allegations are not correct. There is a lot of politics in Punjab. This tapping could be its fallout, he had said. Clearly, the letter of Justice T.S. Thakur describes the elaborate game plan to narrow down on a few people, including some judges who were seen as an impediment in pursuing agendas by key functionaries of the executive. But did the conspirators of the game plan use a section of the media also in destroying the reputation of judges of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, which Justice Thakur has tried to restore in his letter of 11th January 2009? It appears so. A reputed national daily exclusively splashed the Vigilance Bureau reports on telephone tapping on its front page on 4th June 2009. It also quoted H.S. Mattewal as saying that it was his duty to bring any piece of information prejudicial to the image of exalted institution of judiciary to the notice of the Chief Justice. But by the time the daily carried the Vigilance Bureau reports, Justice T.S. Thakur had already rubbished them in his letter of 11th January 2009 sent to the then Chief Justice of India. Interestingly, a few days later, Mattewal wrote an article in the same daily titled Law in the Dock, saying, "Shocking, outrageous, unbelievable is the first reaction of anybody who reads the Punjab Vigilance Bureau report based on audio-video evidence. The shocking outrage belied the fact that he was the one who had been carrying the Vigilance Bureau reports from Sumedh Singh Saini to Justice Vijender Jain in the previous months without having any locus standi in the administrative hierarchy of Punjab and had himself put the law in the dock." Newsroom head Harpal Singh and daily correspondent Rishpal Das Kothra met up with Justice Vijender Jain in Noida and asked him some pointed questions about the phone tapping episode and his controversial recommendation against Justice M.S. Gill.
Some conversations which were happening between people around the judges, not the judges themselves, and I think on your initiative their phones were apparently monitored by the Vigilance Bureau, and you sent a report to the Chief Justice of India at that time, and there are certain recommendations which were made, which were turned down by Justice K.G. Balakrishnan.
Whatever I did, I forgot after debuting office.
But
It's up to them, and whatever I thought best for the institution, I did. But thereafter was after retired.
Was it not an extraordinary step to take for fellow judges to be monitored through people around them?
You see, whatever I did in Punjab and Haryana, only one thing was paramount in my mind. The dignity of the judicial institutions, the people's faith in the institution. So whatever best I could do to safeguard the interest of a judge, the institutions, I did it. But after debuting office, I forgot everything.
You headed the judiciary for 2 states, and there was the executive. The head of judiciary in the state depended on the executive to check on part of this pillar only.
No.
So that's what I'm saying, it was.
No, I never allowed anybody to tape the telephone of a judge. Never.
People around the judges.
Never.
This was done by the Vigilance Bureau, headed by an officer who has cases of disappearances for which he is being tried by the CBI.
No, but I didn't depend on the report of the Vigilance Bureau. I may tell you that much.
The criticism was that this entire extraordinary measure was undertaken to sabotage the collegium system, and it was an impropriety of some nature.
पंजाब गवर्नमेंट बहुत हॉस्टाइल थी उन जज के लिए, ठीक है, ये तो आपको मालूम ही है, और आपने खुद ही बताया कि विजिलेंस वाले कर रहे थे, और मेरे पास भी वो इनपुट वाज वन ऑफ द इनपुट्स. अब 2 चीजें हैं. एक तो यहाँ पर अच्छा उनका भी जो एटीट्यूड था वो बड़ा एंटी एक पर्टिकुलर व्यक्ति के लिए था, जो नहीं होना चाहिए. मैंने कई बार समझाया भी उनको. मैंने कहा तुम्हें क्या लेने देना, तुम जब तक जज हो अपनी जजी करो, डोंट इन्वॉल्व योरसेल्फ टू मच इनटू इट. एनीहाउ दैट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग, दैट वाज पर्सनल. अब 2 चीजें हैं, या तो वो एलिगेशन पब्लिक में आए और वो जज कहे, जो अखबारों में डेली होता है, जज कहे कि नहीं मेरा तो कोई संबंध नहीं है, और या मैं कहूं कि उनको उनका 1.5 साल सिर्फ रह गया है, कहीं दूसरी जगह उनको भेज दो जिससे सारी कंट्रोवर्सी खत्म हो जाए. माई डिसीजन वाज नॉट टू हर्ट हिम, माई डिसीजन वाज जस्ट टू सेव हिम फॉर अननेसेसरीली कंट्रोवर्सी विच विल बी जनरेटेड. अगर मैं उस कंट्रोवर्सी को उस समय इरप्ट होने देता कि ये सैनी लगा हुआ है, मतेवाल लगा हुआ है, बादल सरकार लगी हुई है उस जज के खिलाफ, और वो जज कह रहा है मेरा तो कोई मतलब ही नहीं है, तो किसी ने उस जज की बात नहीं सुननी थी. एक सेक्शन जो उसको बिलीव करता उसकी सुनता, बाकी मीडिया में खूब छपना था. और मैंने यही लिखा था, मैंने कहा वी शुड नॉट अलाउ दिस टू हैपन, कि वो हाँ कहे, उसका इंटरव्यू ले, लोग उससे क्वेश्चन कन्फ्रंट करें, उसके ऊपर कोई इंक्वायरी करे. इसलिए बेटर ये है उसके इंटरेस्ट के अंदर कि इसको यहां से कहीं नजदीक भेज दो, विच पीपल डू नॉट नो. अब मुझे मालूम है कि वो जो कर रहा था अपना ये जो सैनी है ना, अभी वही है, सोनिया सैनी के क्रेडेंशियल्स कोई अपने को बहुत अच्छे थे नहीं, तो इसलिए मैंने कहा है कि वो दैट वाज वन ऑफ द इनपुट्स.
Were you disappointed when you noticed that the recommendation was not accepted?
That was not in my hand.
But did it disappoint you?
Did not. As you see, a karma yogi is one who has to look to his action, not to see the result. What Gita says, karmanna seva adhikare ma phaleshu kadachana. So you do your duties.
Day and Night News also spoke to Justice M.S. Gill at Chandigarh about the entire episode. This is what he said.
Justice Thakur, T.S. Thakur, who was the then Chief Justice of the Punjab Haryana High Court, now a judge of the Supreme Court, inquired into this matter in detail, as per information I have gathered, and he had trashed all these tapes and threw them into the dustbin. Justice Thakur's report is a report which is speaking for itself. I have retired now. Beyond this, I do not want to say anything.
Gurpreet Singh Cheena of Day and Night News met up with 2 persons, Nirmaldeep Singh and Manjeet Singh Maan, to get a sense of what was going on. Both are mentioned in the Vigilance Bureau reports for having conversations with the two private individuals codenamed P1 and P2 whose phones were being tapped.
I first met Manjeet Singh Maan in Moga. He is a local youth Congress leader there. He has a private business and he is also involved with his family's agriculture work. I asked him if he knew that his phone had been tapped.
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਵਿਜੀਲੈਂਸ ਨੇ ਫੋਨ ਟੈਪ ਕੀਤਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦਾ ਪਰਸਨਲੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪਤਾ ਜਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਮੂਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂ ਕਿ ਦੇਰ ਦਾ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗਿਆਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ
I also met Nirmaldeep Singh in Chandigarh. Nirmaldeep Singh is an SDO in Punjab's PWD department and lives in Sector 10 of Chandigarh. He is known to be close to former PWD Minister Sucha Singh Langa in the previous SAD BJP government. He is also close to several officers in the Punjab Vigilance Bureau. Like Manjeet Singh Maan, Nirmaldeep Singh also feigned ignorance about his phone having been tapped.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਟੈਪਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਬਾਕੀ ਬੀਇੰਗ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਆਬਜੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਰ ਆਈ ਡੋਨਟ ਨੋ ਹਾਊ ਟੂ ਰਿਐਕਟ ਔਨ ਦਿਸ ਆਨਸਰ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਲਾਇਰ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛ ਕੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਚੰਗਾ ਸਮਝੂਗਾ ਪਰ ਆਈ ਡੋਨਟ ਅਵੇਅਰ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਨਾਟ ਅਵੇਅਰ ਆਫ ਐਨੀ ਟਾਈਪ ਆਫ ਟੈਪਿੰਗ ਔਰ ਐਨੀਥਿੰਗ ਐਲਸ ਆਈ ਡੋਨਟ ਨੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਟੈਪਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਇਟਸ ਓਕੇ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ
There are several questions which arise from the entire phone tapping episode which haven't been answered by anyone in the executive or the judiciary even today. What was the motive of the Vigilance Bureau to undertake this task? Was there any collusion between Sumet Singh Saini and H.S. Mattewal to browbeat some judges of the Punjab and Haryana High Court? Why did Justice Vijender Jain go along with H.S. Mattewal without questioning when he received the reports from the Vigilance Bureau? Why did Sumet Singh Saini break the chain of command and submit the reports to the then Advocate General and not to the then Chief Secretary whom he reported to? Was the permission to Punjab Vigilance Bureau to tap telephones given by the then Principal Secretary Home Punjab backdated? Why did the Vigilance Bureau not name the second person in its reports whose telephone was tapped?